Let's say today you have 20,000 in metals and that triples. Let's say starting today you bought $880 a month in metals and that tripled. And let's say you invested $880 a month in mining stocks and you got a 6x return. In just 5 years, you'd have over $400,000 and would easily become a millionaire in less than 8 years. I'll explain more about that in a moment. What is good, Stackers University? It's so good to have you here. Did you know that in a study of 10,000 millionaires, they found that 79% of them were self-made? Did you know that just over 30% of them never made six figures in a single working year of their career? Folks, those stats just got rid of a bunch of excuses. I find these conversations about money, wealth, and becoming a millionaire extremely fascinating, as it tends to reveal a lot about the individual and their mindset. Some of my favorite comments people make are, money doesn't matter. The heck it doesn't. What do you use to feed yourself and take care of your needs? Or another comment, I don't care about money. Don't tell that lie. Why do you trade 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 52 weeks out of the year for a job you don't like? You may not care most about money, but you absolutely care about money. In fact, let me explain it to you using the words of Daniel Handler. People who say money doesn't matter are like people who say cake doesn't matter. It's probably because they've already had a few slices. Another phrase, money won't buy happiness. That may be true, but tell me what poverty and being broke will buy you. That aside, I will tell you, it may not buy you happiness, but it makes finding happiness a whole lot easier. Or as I once heard someone say, money doesn't buy happiness, but poverty gives discounts on depression and anxiety. Ain't that the truth? Another thing is that money does buy you the freedom to find your happiness. And then there's always the phrase, I'd rather be happy than rich. First of all, whoever said you had to choose between those two? Let me tell you, I've been poor and I've been pretty damn well off. And what I know is money has made my lows not so low, and money has allowed my highs to be just a little bit higher. And for the last one that people always share is, it's only money. It's only money is very true. But don't we feel a little different about that statement when you have a pocket full of money or a bank account full of zeros versus being flat broke or in the negative? I think those statements really speak to the complex relationship we have with money and even how we've been miseducated about its role. The best explanation of money I've heard is that money is a tool. And I love this analogy because all a tool is something we use to help carry out a function or a task. At the same time, a tool has very key characteristics such as functionality, utility, manipulability, intentionality, repeatability, and adaptability. The right tool used the right way makes every task significantly easier. As Frank Herbert put it, quote, the wise man observed that money is a tool of freedom, but the pursuit of money is the way to slavery. Tools like money play a critical role in our society, largely because they enhance economic efficiency, facilitate trades and investment, enable us to manipulate our environment, create new things, solve problems efficiently, and even achieve our economic goals. Money doesn't matter when you understand that it's simply a tool. It's all about how you use it, for what purpose, and motivation that truly makes all the difference in the world. If you can remember this concept, then none of the negative things we've been taught about the rich or the desire to be rich, none of those things will even matter. Why? Because over my 20 plus years as an educator, the biggest barrier to people achieving their goals is related to their mindset, or what I call their operating system, kind of like Windows 11. If you're not careful, you will find yourself believing that money is the root of all evil, when the full phrase is, for the love of money is the root of all evil. You'll believe things like the wealthy are greedy or selfish. The problem I've also found is that the poor tend to find reasons and excuses to hate the rich, and I believe much of this is to cover up and make them feel better for not going out and achieving their financial dreams. Who really wakes up in the morning, stretches and says, well, how can I make sure I keep myself poor today? What really started me down this road was a comment left by Frankie653, and he wrote, amen, 100%. You put into words what I wanted to say in the first 2 minutes of this video, Doc. Personally, I can never put a price on silver. It was my first investment. It was my first financial teacher. It helped me build habits which are valuable in life. It leveled me up to buy gold. After gold, I turned to stocks, bonds, REITs. The first step is the hardest, but it must be taken. And for me, it was buying that 1 ounce of silver that started it all. Frankie is one of my OG Stacker University students, and I wish I could tell you the ways in which he has literally changed his financial life and life in general over the last 2 years in particular. Frankie has become a true student of investment, and he may even read more books now than I do. It's amazing, and congratulations to you, Frankie. What he's referencing in his comment is this: the Stacker's Wealth Pyramid. And basically it starts with a foundation of strong personal finances, then precious metals, and from there it's really a personal choice of going into real estate, business, and equities. The key here is understanding that the higher you go up the pyramid, the greater the risks, the greater the knowledge or skill level needed, as well as the potential leverage. I like the steps the way they are ordered because at each level of the pyramid, you learn different skills that are needed for the next level up. While this is laid out as a simple process, that doesn't mean it's easy. Frankie and many of our other guys on Discord will tell you that it's not easy because you have to change your mindset, your mentality when it comes to money, its role in your life, and how you handle and manage your finances. The biggest reason why most gold and silver stackers or investors never level up and become gold and silver millionaires is because they stop at level 2 of the pyramid. It's possible to save your way to $1 million using gold and silver. It's much more challenging because you need an accelerant to really get there, be it real estate, a business, or using the equities. As Frankie mentioned, he had to transition from silver to gold to stocks to bonds and REITs. So let me show you how you can use gold and silver and become a gold and silver millionaire. Let's say you make the average U.S. income in 2022, which was $105,555 for a family, and you are able to save 20% of your income. I know that sounds aggressive, but it's not as bad if you consider having an employer matching 401k and things like that. That means you will need to save $21,111 per year, which is $1,760 a month. Now assume that you currently had $20,000 in gold and silver, and you continue to buy $1,760 worth of gold and silver every month. After 20 years with an average return of 8%, which according to Statista, between January 1971 and March 2024, gold had an average annual return of 7.9%. That means you would have amassed $1,059,711.83 worth of gold and silver. Not bad at all, and actually very doable. I know some of you are screaming that that's not really right because it's in fiat dollars, which are worth less and less. I hear you, but just work with me a little bit here now. Now, this is going to be a little bit tricky, but let's say over the next 5 years, you focus really hard and try to take advantage of this bull market. And let's say your existing stack of $20,000 in physical metals triples to $60,000. Meanwhile, instead of only buying $1,760 in physical metals, you split that up into half metals and half equities. And so that $880, let's say that triples in physical metals, and that would roughly be about $52,000. But the other $880 that you did every month for the next 5 years, let's say you got a 6x return on that, and that's conservative. That would equal $316,000. That means in 5 years, your original $20,000 in metals would have grown to 60, and your additional $880 per month in physical would be, let's call it $120,000, and your $880 in mining stocks would be worth $270,000. If you're keeping track at home, I adjusted those numbers down a little bit because your first dollars invested would have the highest return, and later dollars would have a lower return, obviously. That aside, in less than 5 years of this bull market, you would have amassed around $450,000. Now let's go back to the calculator and start with your $450,000 after 5 years, and you continue with that same $1,780 in being invested every month. And an appreciation of 8% in less than 8 years, 13 years in total, you would have more than $1 million worth of assets. Now, of course, this is all hypothetical, but my goal is to show you two things. One, it is very possible to become a millionaire in 20 years using a very average salary and a reasonable 20% savings rate. And two, which is the more important message, we are at a very special time in history, one where creating wealth is well within your reach, but it does require you to work, learn, and sacrifice. Not everything, but enough to change your financial destination for you and your loved ones. So don't screw up this door of opportunity. Don't let it go by and spend the rest of your life wishing you would have done more. If you feel confident in your ability, then proceed and do your due diligence and invest in a variety of asset classes. If you don't feel confident in your ability, pay for one of the services to help you out there. There's Don Durrett, and he does a great work with gold stock data. John Finnick, Mining Stock Junkie, Finding Value Finance, David Kranzler's Mining Stock Journal, and so many other people that you can subscribe to and learn from them and take advantage of what they know and have them help you and guide you through the process. For goodness sake, you've got to shoot your shot over the next 5 years here and not live with the regrets of what I should have done or I should have contributed more. Money ain't everything, but it sure does make a whole bunch of things a heck of a lot easier. As I shared, 79% of the millionaires are self-made, which means you absolutely can do it. And only just over 30% of them had a salary that was below $100,000 in a year. And only 1/3 of them ever made 6 figures in a single working year of their career. Folks, there just aren't any excuses. Take this opportunity. This is a once, maybe twice in a lifetime opportunity. In the comments, why haven't you developed a plan to acquire $1 million in assets? Do you think that is possible for you? Why or why not? Or simply put an A+ in the comments so that everyone knows that you always stack smarter and never stop learning. Now let's shift to the paid sponsorship portion of this video. I want to thank Rua Gold, OTC ticker NZAUF, and CSE ticker RUA for sponsoring this portion of the video. Before I get into it, I need to remind you that this is not financial advice, and as always, you have to be the investor because you have to own your own results. Rua Gold is an up-and-coming dynamic exploration company in New Zealand. I know what you're thinking, New Zealand, but give me a minute and I'll explain what makes New Zealand a very interesting Tier 1 jurisdiction. Whenever we talk about investing in mining stocks, we always have to remind ourselves of the Lassonde curve and the associated risks at different points of that curve. While I largely focus on pre-production and early production companies, I find it exciting to allocate a small portion of my budget towards exploration stocks because of the incredible upside. I almost think about them as buying a stack of lottery tickets. As a reminder, you absolutely have to take a basket approach to these stocks, as one big winner can more than cover the other losses from those other 9 in your basket, for example. Rua Gold has quickly made a name for itself because of the land they acquired, the company leadership, and the money they have in the bank. I actually first learned about Rua Gold about 2 months ago when I saw the CEO, Robert Eckford, on Resource Talk CEO Barbecue episode. In full disclosure, I do own shares in this company. But that aside, they have 2 key projects. First is in the South Island named the Reefton Goldfield, which includes 6 major projects, which 4 of them are actually past producing mines. And in the North Isle, they have the Hauraki Goldfield. What really got my attention was, unlike most explorers, they are actually fully permitted and have a strong treasury of more than $5 million to execute their exploration and development plans. The way I see it, that means in the short term, they are less likely to dilute us by offering more shares in order to answer the unanswered questions. Questions only the drill results can answer. Plus, they have no debt and are only being valued at $40 million Canadian. Let's dig into leadership real quickly because we know how important it is, especially for exploration companies. They have an extremely experienced board and management team made of people who have done it before and done it in New Zealand specifically. Let me run this down for you. Their chairman is the former chairman of Frontier Gold and Rocks Gold. Their CEO, Robert Eckford, was the co-founder of Aris Mining, and he actually left Aris Mining in a salary worth more than $500,000 to lead Rua Gold, which meant he gave up more than 60% of his annual pay to come lead this company. What he said about making this shift is what really impressed me. He said, quote, "I see the potential to create $700 million in shareholder value." Meanwhile, COO and director Simon Henderson's name may not stand out to us, but he's an exploration expert that has led multiple gold discoveries in New Zealand. Rua Gold's leadership pedigree continues with their current CFO being the former CFO of Great Bear, and 3 other directors that include the former co-founder of K92, former CEO of West Africa Fortuna, and the former CEO of Lithium Africa. The executives at Rua Gold are people who have built billion-dollar companies in bull markets, which is experience you can't understate or undervalue. Earlier, I mentioned I was going to explain New Zealand and why it matters in terms of location jurisdiction. Rua Gold CEO Simon Henderson knows New Zealand extremely well. In fact, he has had what we call mega success on this island, discovering gold just next door to Rua's property. As we all know, the best place to find gold is where you have found it previously. New Zealand's geology is particularly interesting because one, its formation actually dates back to the dinosaurs, and two, millions of ounces have already been found on these islands. But all of that was really before the 1950s, which means the land really hasn't been explored at depth or with modern technology, which makes this very interesting. Also, when it comes to the grades, New Zealand hosts grades 20 times higher than the worldwide average. And ultimately, the proof is in the pudding, as Rua's Pactos vein measured at, now hear this, 16.4 grams per ton of gold over 7 meters, which included 2 intervals of more than 1 ounce per ton of gold over 1 meter. Other assays included 9.41 grams per ton over 12 meters. This is very high grade gold. So why has this land just been sitting there? Well, what I discovered was, thanks to good old stupid politics, mining basically stopped in New Zealand for the last 70 years. Thankfully, New Zealand recently appointed a Minister of Resources that is pro-business and pro-mining, which is bringing back the industry and bringing it to the forefront. It also doesn't hurt that New Zealand has been in a little bit of recession and sees mining as a way to boost the economy. This pro-mining shift within New Zealand partly explains how Rua Gold already has all of its permits in place, which will accelerate their timeline and hopefully shorten that orphan phase referenced in the Lassonde curve. As you can see from the catalyst timeline here, Rua Gold is moving very quickly to reach 1 million ounces as their target. This makes Rua Gold more of a what's happening right now company and not a what may happen company. With New Zealand's pro-mining shift, it is not unreasonable to think Rua Gold could be producing within 2 or 3 years. That is what excited me about this company. I want to thank Rua Gold, OTC ticker NZAUF, and CSE ticker RUA for sponsoring this portion of the video, and I encourage you to check them out at www.ruagold.com. As one final reminder, this is still an exploration stock, so you need to position appropriately and set reasonable timeline for your expectation. In other words, don't go liquidating Tommy's little college fund in order to buy the stock. You have to be the investor because you always have to own your own results. Thank you again to Rua Gold.